afternoon. Welcome to today's administrators panel. My name is Ashley Jones, and I serve as the coordinator of parent and family programs in the Center for Student Success here at Southern Miss, and I will serve as host for our virtual discussion. I'm joined today with several university administrators who will address the state of the university and plans for the fall 2020 semester. At this time, I will invite each of them to introduce themselves and state what area they represent.
Afternoon, and thank you, Ashley, for welcoming us here today. My name is Amy Chasteen, and I serve as the Executive Vice Provost here at the University of Southern Mississippi. I work in academic affairs, and I work on a lot of different areas related to undergraduate student success and the teaching and learning mission of the university. And I look forward to answering questions and talking with you all today.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Anderson. I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs. And so I work in the Student Affairs area, which complements all the things that are happening in the classroom. So out of the classroom experiences like our leadership, student government, sorority and fraternity life, campus housing, university police, health services, campus rec, all those kind of fun things that happen outside of the classroom. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have today.
Hi, welcome. My name is Serena Cantrell. I'm the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. I'm also assisting with Housing and Residence Life for the next couple of weeks. So I know that I'll be open to answering questions about housing and move-in day and anything you have about that area. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Meyer. I am the Dining Director here at USM. Happy to answer questions about all things dining. I know there are some out there. Thanks for letting me be here.
And hello, everybody. Jacob Cochran. I'm the Director of Auxiliary Services here at the university, underneath the Vice President of Business and Finance. So I oversee areas such as food service, bookstore, post office, parking, and a few other areas. So happy to be here. Hopefully we can answer some questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, panelists. Prior to today's discussion, Parent and Family Programs solicited questions from families of Southern Miss students regarding the fall 2020 semester, and we received a number of entries. Today, Southern Miss administrators will address your pre-submitted questions in hopes to provide a clarity as your students prepare for classes over the next several weeks. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Chasteen, with masks being mandatory on campus and in the classrooms, how will the university enforce this requirement?
Well, I think we're all getting used to wearing masks and different forms of face coverings. I know, I have mine here. I think we all have them in our cars and in our bags and just kind of everywhere as we move around our cities and go grocery shopping and everywhere else. And I think when students return to campus, like all of us, they're just going to have to get used to wearing them. And as with any change, it will take a while, and we understand that. And as a campus community, we're all going to have to work together to just encourage one another and remind one another to wear those masks as we go to class, as we go into the food halls, as we go through our activities and student life. And I think that it'll take time, but really we're going to enforce it mostly by just shifting the culture and helping people to understand that it's expected. Classes will have syllabus policies that communicate to students that it is required to enter the classroom. There'll be signage on the doors, there'll be signage in the halls, there'll be signage on different buildings throughout the campus. And as we remind students of that, both in the classes and in the different facilities, I think that'll be the primary way that we just enforce it and remind people. And we will also have masks available for students if they're moving into the residence halls and then at other places on campus if they don't have them or forget them. So that'll help also to encourage the enforcement of it throughout the year.
You're right, because I have my mask with me and I am starting to color coordinate my mask with that I have my gold mask today.
And I noticed when we post on Instagram with some of the student affairs masks that say to the top, Dr. Anderson, they're very cute, and students will post, oh, there we go. Students want them. There's a hot property out there right now. If you have a cute Southern Miss mask with a golden eagle on it, students are starting to want those. And I think that's going to be just part of the fall culture as we all get acclimated to this new world we live in.
For sure. One family asks that if in-person attendance is mandatory for face-to-face classes, will you address that?
Sure. Students need to go to class, obviously, and that's always a challenge in the transition from high school environments to college. But there are also circumstances where students can't come to class if they are ill. Certainly, if they're ill with COVID, but if they're ill with anything, we don't want them necessarily coming to class. In this case, this year we have special circumstances because of the pandemic. Sometimes people may be exposed and not be sick themselves, but we want them to self-isolate and just be careful and watch themselves for a little while and not attend class. So we've been working with faculty for months now to prepare their courses so that those courses are able to be very flexible, so that if a student needs to be in his or her residence hall room or be in his or her apartment or at home, that they can continue to work remotely and not fall behind. Because our students are very diligent. They don't want to get behind in their classes if they need to self-isolate. And we certainly don't want students to go to class when they don't feel well or have been exposed for fear of getting bad grades. So all of our faculty know that they need to design classes such that students can continue to stay on top of their assignments, even if they need to not be in class for 2 weeks at a time. So we're prepared for that. And if attendance is expected when students are feeling well and everything is going smoothly, it's also going to be accommodated if they need to be out.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Cantrell, what protocol is set in place to maintain social distancing and the clean air quality in the residence halls and sorority and fraternity housing?
Sure, I'm working directly with the maintenance and housekeeping here weekly to make sure that we're cleaning more frequently than just once a day. And we are checking air filters to replace those when needed and looking at the air units also with our maintenance men. So we are on top of that and making sure that we're monitoring that air quality in those areas.
One family asks that if one roommate exhibits symptoms of COVID-19 or tests positive, what plans does Housing and Residence Life have in place for both roommates to adhere during that self-quarantine period? And will they be expected to quarantine in their residence hall for the recommended 2 weeks, or under what conditions will that student then be required to possibly remove themselves from the university setting and continue self-quarantine at home?
Sure. What we do have an isolation plan that we're going to activate when we do have a student who either test positive or might be a close contact exposure to the virus. And we will work with that student whether they choose to go home. Some students want to go home. We will encourage that if they can. But if they cannot go home, we will move them to an isolation space that has its own bathroom and its own microwave. That way they do have a comfortable place by themselves and they can isolate for that 14-day period. And we're working directly with Aramark on making sure those students receive food 3 times a day so they don't feel like they have to come out of their room to get that. So we are working with them on that also.
Wonderful, wonderful. We've discussed masks in the classrooms and social distancing in the residence halls. So let's move now a little to dining. From either Mr. Cochran or Mr. Meyer, will masks be required in the eating areas, and how will the administration and Eagle Dining alleviate and control the usual lunch crowd in the fresh food company and to eliminate the transmission of the virus?
I can take that one. Thanks. That's an excellent question. So regarding masks, of course, that's a university mandate, and we certainly want to support that. And so, masks will be worn in those locations. Of course, it's difficult to wear those when you're eating. So what we've done inside really all of our restaurants, but when we think of dining, we think of the Fresh Food Company and how large that is. But at every location, we've sort of followed the guidance of university, local, state, federal guidelines, and we have a decreased capacity there, right? So we're at about 50% capacity at all of our locations. All of those tables that are in there have a maximum seating of 6. All of the tables and chairs are separated and socially distanced by 6 feet. And so we want to provide an opportunity for students to sit down, even if it's in a small group of 4 to 6, and be able to be able to have a meal and enjoy the atmosphere there. But we realize that's going to be a challenge because it's half the seating. So what we're emphasizing and putting some more faith in and stress in is our Grubhub app. We encourage all students to download Grubhub and utilize it if and when they can. We're even going to be offering some Grubhub at the Fresh Food Company, which is different than we've ever done before, just to help give students and guests some options about where they eat, where they take their meal. Right, they can pick it up and go to the residence hall. They can sit outside, and have some other options other than sitting in the restaurants. We've also placed some tables and chairs outside of the Fresh Food Company to, again, just provide some other options for students to be able to do that. Regarding helping to prevent the spread of COVID-19, we have implemented really many protocols for ourselves. We will be all of our employees will be pre-screened, health screened, and temperatures taken prior to their shift, right? So we can maybe catch anybody who's not feeling well or is showing symptoms of COVID-19. All of our employees, once they're screened and temped, would be wearing gloves and masks at all times. We will be increasing our frequency of cleaning and sanitizing, hand washing. We even, in the Fresh Food Company, since the volume is so high, we'll be shutting down the Fresh Food Company, the main dining area, from 2 to 4 in an effort to reset, change shifts, and then get things cleaned and sanitized on a larger scale, in addition to all the all day long cleaning and sanitizing we'll be doing. While we do that, we will have a grab and go section all the time, but between 2 and 4, that grab and go section will be open and students can still come in and get stuff to go with their meal plan or their declining balance. So the goal here, I think, is really for us is to limit contact, right? And so some of the other things we're implementing, where a station might have been self-service in the last normal that we had, in this new normal, we'll be doing a lot more serving. We'll have a lot more grab and go options to help with that contactless to limited contact transaction. And then also to help with that in our retail, well, really all over campus, we are not taking cash currently. And that is really the primary reason for that, is the contactless transaction. So we're turning our credit card machines around. So credit card paying customers can do that themselves. We take Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, and then of course students will have their ID card that can be swiped. So really just an increased focus on cleaning and sanitizing, how we're serving the food, but we still want to provide a great experience to these students. So there's still going to be some great food, great options, all you care to eat in the Fresh Food Company, just as usual. And then finally, more opportunity to take your food to go.
Thank you. Yes, that's very thorough. And it seems like, you guys have certainly put a lot of thought into how to certainly keep our students and our Southern Miss community safe. And we certainly appreciate that. Thank you. With that, will all restaurants be open? Family asked if the Grub Slinger and Seymour's and Powerhouse and Starbucks, all locations will be open this fall, correct?
Yes, ultimately that is the plan, right? As we see how this semester sort of progresses, right? You may see maybe different hours of operation for some of these places, but ultimately the goal is to have everything open as students continue to come back onto campus. As I said, as an example, the Fresh Food Company, which is normally open, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. During the week, there will be a break there between 2 and 4, just so we can ensure that we're taking care of the sanitation piece and trying to keep people safe. So you may see relatively different hours than you might have seen last fall, but ultimately all locations will be open.
Dr. Anderson, some families have inquired how social distancing will be addressed amongst student organizations and student events, such as sorority and fraternity recruitment. Will you address that for us?
Absolutely. So we will follow all the city and state guidelines on all of our events. So we are limited to the number of students we can convene together at this point. And also Forest County has stricter regulations than some of the other counties. So at this point, we are planning events that are either 5-person or a pick up an event type thing and go, like pick up a kit to go do something in your room with your roommate as a fun social piece. So we're planning some of those really creative ways that we've been working on throughout the summer to provide our services to students. So there'll be a lot of virtual options and a lot of smaller group options. As far as fraternity and sorority recruitment, that will all be delivered through a virtual format. Because of the nature of recruitment and the number of people that are involved, there was no way that we could do that in an in-person, given the current guidelines from the state. So that will be a virtual format. It'll be something we've never done before, and it'll be a new process. But we felt it was important to continue to give our students an opportunity to get involved and be engaged in campus and to join a sorority or fraternity if they're choosing.
Dr. Chastain, some families have inquired how social distancing, how or if a refund or a lowered or decrease in tuition will happen if classes are offered online. So with classes now being online and with online classes increasing, will tuition be lowered?
Yeah, we've definitely heard a lot of conversation about this, and we've been offering online classes in combination with in-person classes for many years now, and in fact, for several years, the majority of our undergraduate students have been taking at least one online course per semester, which is interesting to me. And I think a lot of our students, even pre-COVID, were finding that these courses were helpful to them in terms of having scheduling flexibility and having other kinds of options for their time and for their scheduling needs. And so over the course of time, we've really seen more and more people taking a combination of both of those. And that's really the case again this fall. And I realize that some students are taking more online courses than they would have liked in a non-COVID world, and that is a challenge. We are reducing the typical fee that we offer, that we charge for online courses from $20 a credit hour to half of that at $10 a credit hour for these classes that we didn't originally intend to be online, for students who are not in our fully online campus, for students who signed up for online programs. And that's because we do understand that these students did not intend to take all of their classes online from the beginning. The challenge, of course, for us is that from a faculty perspective, from a teaching and learning perspective, the courses cost the same for delivery. The effort on the part of the faculty is no different. And we've really invested a great deal since the end of the spring term in faculty designing classes that look perhaps more like in-person classes than we often expect. We've had trainings going multiple times a week since April for our faculty as they start to build their classes for August. And our goal is to have the classes be very engaging, very dynamic, to include interaction with faculty members, whether they meet face-to-face or meet online. The classes are going to involve that kind of robust, engaged learning that you would expect from an in-person course. So what we're trying to do to the best of our ability is to create an experience that students can have, whether they're meeting face-to-face or meeting virtually, that will not be as radically different as people fear. A lot of the resources that people are accustomed to having in person walking around on campus, we want to make sure that they get all of those resources accessible to them virtually. So for instance, if they want to talk to an academic advisor, those appointments are available to them online through Zoom face-to-face meetings like we're having now. If they need career counseling services, we have those available to them right now. They can log in online and speak with a career counselor and have those meetings to prep for job interviews, to seek employment, to prep their resume. If they'd like to have writing center tutors, speaking center tutors, all of the resources that we have available in an in-person setting, we also have available remotely. So what we're trying to do is do the best we can to create the same kind of dynamic learning experience where students connect to one another, connect to faculty and staff in the same level that they would in person. So we want to have the same quality and return on that investment in your education that you would get in person. And that's what we're aiming to do. And I know that Dr. Anderson and her team in Student Affairs is doing the same thing. So our hope is that students will see that return on the investment for the cost of what they're paying for their experience here at Southern Miss. And it's a value we want everybody to have.
Thank you. This next question is for either Dr. Chastain or Dr. Cantrell. It asks that if students are allowed to travel over the weekend, considering that the semester is shortened to minimize travel after Thanksgiving. So can students still travel over the weekends?
Well, you know, we can't stop them. That's for sure. And I'm sure Serena would say the same thing. You know, students, we hope that we'll have things for them to do locally where they want to stay here and get to know the campus and get to know their roommates and spend time in student activities here. And they'll probably be very busy studying because, you know, that's all they want to do anyway, I'm sure. I'm the academic, I have to say that. But, you know, students are certainly allowed to travel. You know, I think we find that a lot of times, honestly, students do get very busy with their schoolwork and with things that they're doing with their organization. So they may or may not have time to travel much in the semester, but we aren't prohibiting travel, if that's the question. Serena?
Yeah, I agree. There's no way to really monitor that. You know, if students want to go home, sometimes they need to go home. And so that's totally okay. Just, I would be mindful of where you are traveling, depending on if you're going to somewhere that, you know, has a lot of the virus, the potential of you getting that there. Just be careful. But no.
And I would just add that, you know, most of our students are Mississippi students or regionally, you know, relatively local. And so when they travel, they don't travel far, and they're likely traveling to an area that has similar policies and situations to us. And so we just ask that they take the good habits they're developing with us and carry them wherever they go.
Thank you. With the month of August being a little less than 3 days away, that's crazy. Move-in day is vastly approaching. So will you explain to us how move-in day will operate, Dr. Cantrell?
Sure. Each student should have received their housing assignment and their move-in day time and date. And so what we have done is we've spaced the students out to ensure that we don't have too many people gathering together at one location. And so each building will have a certain amount of students moving in at every hour and a half about throughout the days. And we have 5 days of move-in day versus 2. And so we've really tried hard to spread that out. We've also included a 30-minute sanitation time in between those times. And so it gives us 30 minutes to wipe down everything before the next group comes in. And so each student will have a certain time and date. Now, if they haven't gotten that information, please reach out to the housing office and we can make sure that we get the students that information.
Thank you. Thank you. You answered one of my next questions. One of the next questions was, how often will external surfaces be cleaned? Every other 30 minutes?
For move-in day, it'll be every hour and a half. We're going to have a 30-minute cleaning time where we're going to do elevators, cart handles, all kinds of stuff. But during the school year, we are ramping up our cleaning also to once a day to a couple times a day. I'm working directly with the housing maintenance on how often we're going to be doing that.
And with that, how specifically would laundry rooms be organized?
Right. We're going to ask students again to take responsibility to be 6 feet away. We know that the laundry rooms in some of the buildings are smaller than others, but we'll have signage that encourages them, if there's people in there, not to go in until people come out. And each building is very different, so it'll depend on the building on what the signage says in those areas, because you can have 4 washers versus 12 washing machines. So they'll be very different. So the RAs will be educating students during their floor meetings about the laundry room, about the kitchens, community bathrooms, those types of things. So they'll be learning a lot of that at their floor meetings.
Dr. Chastain, what are the migration plans for the classrooms and how often will they be cleaned?
You mean in terms of, by migration plans, you mean in terms of how students are going to move around through the classrooms?
Mm-hmm.
We have had building committees for each college working on plans for each classroom building, and we have lots and lots of classroom buildings, and each one is configured a little differently. You know, we have some brand new buildings and some not so brand new buildings. So each one has a little bit of a different set of needs for how we go about directing hallway flow, stairwell access, elevator usage. And basically, each building is going to have designated entrance and exit doors. We're going to have hallways that have a flow with signage indicating traffic flow, which way people should be walking in the hallways. We're going to have doors. If classrooms have 2 doors, they're going to be indicating entrance and exit doors. The stairwells will be marked as up stairwells or down stairwells. Elevators will have limited capacity. We have stickers, round stickers that have been ordered that will be on the floor that'll be placed this next week that indicate how much distance people should be keeping if they're waiting in line for a restroom, let's say, or waiting in line for getting into a classroom to make sure that people maintain space. Within the classrooms themselves, we have moved classes, those that are meeting in person, into large enough classrooms that they are at 25% of the room's capacity. So that allows us to create a lot of space between people. And the chairs are going to be marked off with standardized signage indicating which chairs can be used. The students, of course, will be wearing face coverings in the classrooms, and the students will be dismissed by row and when they leave the classroom to create an easier flow out of the class so that they won't all just bottleneck. You know, I've taught a lot of classes and I can tell you as soon as that time hits for the class to be over, everyone just jumps up and runs together. So instead of just doing what we normally do, we're going to create routines where at the end of every class, the faculty member dismisses by row. And we're also going to encourage faculty to consider staggering the release times a little bit, maybe letting them out early on some days, keeping them a couple of minutes late on occasion, and doing that to allow the students to not pile up as much as they would otherwise normally do. So we also are have ordered cleaning supply stations that'll have pull down pre-moistened wipes with sanitized cleaner on them for every classroom, so that when students come in, the routine will be the faculty member will have sort of wiped things down. The students will walk in, grab a wipe, and wipe down the area before they sit in it. And that way, even though we'll have back-to-back classes in some cases, we won't be able to thoroughly disinfect between every single class. The students will be able to ensure that as they walk in, they will be able to wipe down their personal desk every single time. And by doing so, you know, we'll have a community effort to make sure that all of our spaces are kept completely cleaned over and over again throughout every day. And through doing that, I think we're all going to be able to contribute to this effort and make sure that we keep things as safe as possible going into this next year.
We received a question from the chats. I want to address that one. I know that the university released a message yesterday about online classes until September 8th. And that's when on-campus classes will officially commence. So why are students continuing to move in early if classes will be online until September 8th? Dr. Cantrell or Dr. Anderson?
So the students, we're going to continue with our move-in days, and I think this allows us to have more of a transitional time. And so we know that students are coming from many different locations, and that gives them a time to self-isolate or hang out in their room before everybody goes into the classroom in person. And so we know that some students may not want to move in on their move-in day, and that is okay. We have started a list to keep track of folks that plan to move in prior or after Labor Day. And so that's okay. If students feel they don't want to move in on their move-in day, they can call the housing office and ask to move in after Labor Day. That's not a problem. But I think it's a good transitional period to bring the students back and slowly get everybody back on campus, get them in the habit of wearing their mask, social distancing before they go into those classes in person or activities in person.
We also actually wanted to, we understand that not all of our students have access to internet and technology. So all of those things will be available on campus. So we felt it was important to go ahead and open up the residence hall so our students would have that access. But as Serena mentioned, if a student chooses to stay home during that time, they're certainly able to do so.
Thank you. There was a follow-up question regarding roommates and moving in. Will each roommate be screened prior to moving in together?
Screened virus screen. No, we are not screening people as they move in. On our end, we're screening our volunteers that will be helping though. So we want to make sure our volunteers do not have a fever and are not feeling sick. And so we're screening on our end, but we are not going to screen everybody that moves in those on move-in days.
Part of our educational program in Ashley that we'll be doing during those weeks is talking to students about a daily check on themselves. So part of that daily check is asking students to check their temperature, asking students to go through a list of what are my symptoms, am I feeling okay? And so that's part of that community effort that we talked about, that Dr. Chastain mentioned earlier, that every person in every situation has to really put an effort into making sure that they stay healthy and that they stay safe by doing the things that we've asked them to do, like the daily checkings, wearing your mask, physically distancing from one another. So we'll spend those couple weeks of the first part of the semester really educating our students on those pieces.
Actually, I will echo, sorry, that each resident student will have a wellness bag in their room, and it will have thermometers for each resident. But we'll also have some in the Dean of Students office for commuter students. So they'll have their own thermometer if they need that to help with those self-checks.
Awesome. With the semester on campus, as far as students being physically on campus being shortened due to either coming after or on September 8th and then leaving right before Thanksgiving, one family asks if the cost for dining and housing will be adjusted to reflect the less time on campus. And that can be either for someone in dining or in housing.
So I can address, the housing piece. We have not adjusted our rates. That our rates are approved through our institution of higher learning. So our rates are not adjusted because of the shortened semester. It's not really. We're actually opening 2 weeks earlier to try to allow people to move in. So the actual days in housing aren't really that different than a normal semester. And since we're opening 2 weeks earlier, then dining services will be available early as well. And Jacob may want to add something to this when I get done. But so, we're spreading the days out in a different way than normal. So the costs remain relatively the same.
Right. And it's the same way for meal plans. I mean, the amount of time the meal plan is active is coincides with housing and the time students will be on campus. So, we didn't increase pricing this year and we're trying to keep everything the same, but, at the same time, cost of providing the service has gone up, and specifically there's more work going into the meals provided right now. So, in any case, the amount of time is virtually the same.
Yeah, you're also losing that break. So typically we don't feed students during that break period. So that adds days to it. So, just looking at it holistically, that it didn't really change the number of days that much.
Thank you. Dr. Chastain, will the library and other student hangout spots be open this fall, and how will they operate?
Yes, they will. And the library actually has a lot of exciting news about it. I don't know if any of you have seen the press release or any news, but we have been engaged in a major renovation to the library, totally unrelated to the global pandemic. We have had a $12 million renovation to our main campus library going on now. That's basically the major phases of it are finishing up right now, and we'll be opening up Cook Library to the campus next week. And I had the opportunity to be in there yesterday, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. And part of the renovation is that when you first walk in the library, there's a whole new area for students to sit and study at the very front of the library with windows, lots of tables, lots of spaced out seating. And I expect that that's going to become a significant hangout collaborative space for students beginning this fall. It's right near Starbucks, and there's a lot of space where students can sit 1 or 2 people to a table and be distanced and work on their online classes, work on their homework, sit down between classes. So that will be open beginning next week, and students will be, I'm sure, taking good advantage of that. And the library has always been a place that students gathered. It's, they call it Club Cook for a reason. It's become kind of a semi-social place as well. Masking will be enforced in there, social distancing will be enforced in there, but it is a huge facility with lots of space and plenty of room for people to gather. There will also be other places around campus, where the students will gather, and they will all be open, and we will be providing a combination of in-person and virtual support for students academically in terms of tutoring, writing center and speaking center specialists. And I know that sometimes people ask the question about why their students should come to campus if all their classes are virtually delivered. And I know that each person and each family circumstances are different, and people have to make their own choices. But to Dr. Anderson's earlier point, when we did a survey of students in spring, there were a significant number of our students who did not have computers or did not have good internet access at their home. And we have the opportunity to provide that to our students and to provide good, quiet study spaces, to provide access to advisors, to tutors, to other people who can help them with their academic success. And so we hope that students will take good advantage of that. And sometimes just having that designated space that is your space for studying. A student may say the third floor of the library in this certain corner, that is my cubby, that is my carrel, and that is where I go to do my homework every day. And once you develop that routine, it's easier to stay on task. And if you have a student who's coming to Southern Miss this year for the first time, it is really important that you talk with them about that routine development and how, even if they have, let's say, 3 online classes and 2 in-person classes, managing that time, setting a schedule, developing a study routine is really important for both the face-to-face and virtually delivered courses. They need to meet with their faculty. They need to set up those appointments, go to office hours, have a place they go to study. And the campus will provide that in lots of different ways. So we're happy to talk with them about it. We have their RAs, their other folks in the Office of Leadership and Student Involvement, ambassadors. We can get them connected and help them stay and keep learning as they're here at Southern Miss.
Thank you, Dr. Chastain, for providing a little bit of clarity there. Dr. Cantrell, there's a family whose student lives in Texas but will be living in sorority housing this fall. What happens if their student is needing to quarantine or test positive? Is there going to be a required home for her to stay in housing or in sorority housing, or is it okay for her to return to Texas?
Right, we'll start first. If she wants to return to Texas, that is totally okay. If she wants to do that, if she feels that's where she needs to be and wants to be safer there, we will offer isolation spaces to students who test positive. They're not in the sorority houses. They're in residence halls that have their private bath and a microwave within the room. And that's to keep them isolated and have everything that they need in one spot instead of having to travel to a bathroom or travel to a microwave. So we will provide isolation spaces on campus. And we're notified from our Moffitt Health Center when a student does test and is awaiting the results. And then once their results come back, if they're positive, we will communicate with that student directly on the isolation plan and assist that student through that process.
Thank you. That was the perfect segue to our next question regarding testing on campus. If someone will from the panel, kind of explain to us what testing's like on campus, what type of testings are available for students in the Southern Miss community through Moffitt.
Sure. A student can go to the health center first. We'd like them to make an appointment. That way they're not going into an area that they may contract something else. And so we want them to make an appointment with our health center, and we can test them for COVID-19, whether that's a PCR test. Right now it's a nasal swab. We can do that. And we have ordered antigen tests, which are the rapid test, but we're awaiting the arrival of those. And that could be a couple of weeks due to the demand. But we can currently test through the nasal swab in the health center. And we're sending those off to actually a lab that's connected to campus, and we're getting those back quicker time frame, and that way we can help them get isolated quicker. And so they can test at our health center on campus.
Thank you. Dr. Anderson, in regards to health and fitness, I know that a lot of people are antsy to kind of get back in shape since we've been in quarantine and probably been couch potatoes for a little while. Will the Pain Center be open and offer fitness classes and intramural sports this semester?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I say there's two types of people during this pandemic. Those of us like me who are eating my way through it, and other people who are exercising their way through it. So we hope our students are choosing the exercise and healthier route. So we opened our pain center this summer and put in a lot of different measures into place to keep it a safer environment. So things like spreading out the equipment so that students are not close proximity, so they're 6 feet apart. We will not have intramural sports like we typically do that as the close contact sports like flag football, basketball. We will not be playing those events in the fall, but we are doing some things with some esports and some online gaming opportunities and doing some virtual fitness classes. And then we're using our resources a little differently. So we're taking our basketball gym and we will spread students out and do some fitness classes in the gym, in a safe, socially distanced way. So we've had an opportunity this summer to work through some of those things and try out some new pieces. And we'll continue to do that for the fall for students, because we think it's incredibly important that our students stay healthy, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. And so we're making sure that we provide all those pieces for our students this fall.
Thank you. For our Eagle Dining, we have a question regarding bonus bucks. Will unused bonus bucks from the spring semester roll over to this semester? Unused bonus bucks and dining dollars.
John, you?
Yeah, please, sir, go ahead.
Well, first of all, bonus bucks, those are just declining balance that were included with meal plans. So if you had a meal plan in the spring, the bonus bucks that were not used were refunded as part of those meal plan refunds. Now, dining dollars, those are purchased separately. And if you have those, they do roll over, and they do not currently expire unless they're not used for a period of 1 year. So if you go with a year without using them, then they will expire. But they're available for you to use in the spring semester if you had some. In the fall.
Dr. Chastain, will the labs be open for students this fall to conduct research?
Our labs will be open. Now, it depends, of course, on the student circumstances, but we have some students who have already begun working in the labs if they're working on projects with certain faculty members or if they're part of a research group. Most of our lab classes are going to be offered in person this fall. And we have certain health and safety protocol that are at a higher level for those spaces. So for instance, some of them will have plexiglass dividers at the stations in the labs. We have face shields that have been ordered in addition to the masks for some of the classes. So we're doing a lot of extra work for health and safety within those lab classes. But we do have faculty who are obviously research intensive faculty who have maintained their labs for virtually all of the pandemic, with the exception of some of the intense periods in the beginning. And so they're looking forward to get those labs off the ground and to working with people and students, new students included, once those labs get rolling. So absolutely, they will be open. And students who are interested in that lab activity should talk with the faculty members over the labs to see about the health and safety protocols and what it would take to get involved in that work.
Thank you. We are South Mississippi and we love our football. We know that that's at the top of many of our lists. So Dr. Anderson, if you will, could you tell us a little bit about what's going on with football? Will we have football for this fall?
So actually, that's the $1 million question that everybody across the South wants an answer to. And I can tell you that our athletic director is working very closely with the conference commissioner and all the other conference athletic directors and trying to determine what will happen in the fall. And so we're taking our guidance from them as well as our state, guidelines and our CDC guidelines. So there's not been a decision yet, and the conference has not made a final decision on what will happen for football. I know we're all very anxious to get back to things that we love, like supporting the Golden Eagles, but we're just not sure what format that will take yet this fall, or if we'll be able to do that. So stay tuned and as soon as we have a decision, we will push that out publicly for all of our students and alumni.
Thank you. Dr. Chastain, important to any graduating senior and graduating senior's family is graduation, commencement. What will December graduation look like? What's the talk? Is there any scenarios that are being talked about or played out at this moment?
Oh, Ashley, we were all so sad that we couldn't have graduation in May. That's something that we all look forward to and we enjoy so much, being able to celebrate with our students and their families and seeing them walk across the stage. Many of us know those students by the time they graduate 4 years later, and it's always so exciting for all of us. That was a very hard decision, I know, for Dr. Bennett to make, and he personally loves graduation, and it's very, very difficult for him. Right now, I know he has said that he wants to wait until mid-September to make the call about, to really have the conversation, I think, too much about December graduation, because it's really just honestly too early to know what we're going to be dealing with. And we all are still watching and waiting to see what's going to happen with this virus. And as Dr. Anderson indicated earlier, we all have to look and see the guidelines from the state. A lot of times before we can even know what's possible for gatherings of people in public spaces, indoors or outdoors. So a lot of our decisions will be guided by the state level decisions and the governor's mandates around gatherings, and then we'll see what's possible. I can tell you that prior to the decisions being made about summer, we were working very hard behind the scenes to look at other schools and to identify ways we could get people in spaces with seating and spacing and masking and everything else. We really want to make it happen if there's any way we can. We just want to do what's best for the health and safety of our students and their families. So we should have answers to that probably by mid-September.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, it was definitely sad to hear that we couldn't have our graduation this past spring, but certainly knew the circumstances that we as a state and a country were facing. But we are going to certainly be putting our hands together, hoping that we can celebrate our seniors this December. But
absolutely. From the time they get here to the time they leave, we like to see them be involved, and we like to be involved with them and watch them from the time they start their classes to the time they walk across that stage. So I know that, Dr. Anderson shares my desire to see that happen and to do whatever we can to make sure they feel part of the community from the time they get here to the time they go.
absolutely. Dr. Anderson, many of our students, freshmen, will be moving into campus, and the main thing a freshman wants to do, or one of the main things, is to get involved, to make friends, to make an impact, to get integrated in the university community. How can students ensure that they are being involved if they're in their rooms and they're taking fully online classes? What are some things that they can do to ensure involvement?
Yeah, so Ashley, I understand that question 110% because I have a freshman going to college this year as well. So I understand all the concerns that a parent has about, my students sitting in a room by themselves and will they be connected. We have three main mission pillars in the Division of Student Affairs, and it's health, connections, and learning. So that second piece, connections, is incredibly important to us, and we feel is incredibly important to the success of a freshman. So this year it's a challenge because it will look different than any we've ever done. And as I would challenge you to challenge your student, like I'm challenging mine, that they have to, they're going to have to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. We will have opportunities for engagement through virtual methods, through smaller groups. We're redoing how we do programming in the residence halls so that we can engage students more often on their floors and in smaller groups in the halls. So students are going to have to look for those opportunities, pay attention to the messages that we send out and take advantage of the opportunities that we'll have for them. Social media is a great tool when used wisely. And so a lot of our student groups are engaged on social media platforms, our leadership and student involvement, our association for SMAC and ASOS, and I could go through all kind of alphabet soup organizations that we have on campus. All of those folks will be pushing out different opportunities to engage. So encourage your students to keep an eye out for that, and just to put themselves out there in a new and different way. And then if they're struggling, they need to let us know. So if you see your students struggling, we have a lot of great resources. You're using one right now with the Parent Association. We have counselors. We have our Dean of Students office. Just about any office on campus, there's someone that a student can reach out to and say, hey, I'm having trouble connecting and I'm not feeling a part of this process. Let us know and we'll help them get where they need to be.
I'll echo that the RAs are going to be doing some programming, creative programming in the residence halls. And so they can have some opportunities there to get involved with their hall and with the students on their floor and with their RA.
Dr. Cantrell, if you will, can you address again or a little more in depth about social distancing in the residence halls amongst roommates? How best should roommates social distance when they're in the residence halls together? Should they wear masks when they're in their rooms with one another? How should they go about that process?
Make sure I was unmuted. I encourage them to talk with each other before they move in, and I know they've got their roommate information, to talk about where they're coming from and what they've been doing, so they kind of understand if they should wear a mask around them for some time. A lot of the rooms, they could social distance to 6 feet. Their desks are 6 feet apart. But some rooms will be sharing bathrooms. And so cleaning of the bathrooms amongst the roommates is critical. So having that conversation with each other about a cleaning schedule, or who's going to clean Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and I'll clean Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, whatever that might be. In the residence halls, we also will have the stickers that talk about social distancing in the hallways, in the laundry room. So we'll be doing some of that also within the residence halls on that. But I encourage them to communicate with a roommate if they're going to travel, so they let the roommate know they've traveled somewhere. They may want to wear a mask for a period of time until 14 days come to an end, just to be cautious. I think the hard part is if roommates don't communicate, and so I always encourage them to talk to each other and learn about each other. And then if they're comfortable wearing a mask in the rooms, then I would encourage that too. Some people, it gets hot, and I understand that. And so the rooms, you can be 6 feet away from each other as long as you have your furniture spread out. So I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. Will students be required to completely move out at the end of the fall semester over the long break until January, or are they able to leave items in their residence hall?
I would say that we would treat it as any other semester. So they'll check out, and if they're returning in the spring, then they're fine to leave what they're comfortable with leaving. I know a lot of students bring a lot of stuff, and so leaving it through that time frame is a lot easier on families. So they'll check out just as a traditional semester and leave the belongings that they're comfortable leaving, and then return for the spring. They'll be going right back into the same room. So I do not see a need to do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, as we wrap up our panel discussion for today, I'm going to have the floor open for a few minutes. If any of our panelists have any last minute thoughts or things that they would like to share with parents and families as they are preparing with their students to come to campus in a few weeks.
I just want to say thank you for coming on this event. I know that we're trying to offer information in many different ways and mechanisms. Please know that call us for questions, concerns. I'm happy to help. I'm in the Dean of Students office, but also overseeing housing right now. And I know that's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns for parents. And so please feel free to call or email me directly. Be happy to help ease some of that angst about the next couple of weeks.
I just want to encourage everyone to utilize our website, eagledining.com. You can find hours of operation along with any precautions or steps we're taking to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. So I encourage everyone to check out the website.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say, Ashley, as we end, that there's been a really concentrated effort throughout the entire summer to look at everything that we are doing on this campus, from the classroom to the residence halls, all across campus, just peeling back every layer to see what would it look like in a COVID world? What does that look like? How do we do that? And I feel really good about the plans that we have in place. And I feel like we've, like I said, we've looked at everything, every possible resource that we can out there. But all of our plans every single thing that we have planned is contingent on students and our faculty and staff following our guidelines. So I cannot express to you how important it is for you to work with your student to get them to understand that we need them wearing masks, we need them staying socially distant, they need to wash their hands, they need to do all of those things that we're asking them so that we can finish out the semester successfully. So I will leave it with that very serious note because it's a really serious time, but we're excited that your student is choosing to come to Southern Miss. We feel like it will be a different fall semester, but we think that we've covered our bases and we have a lot of really good things to continue to offer your students. So we're working, our hashtag is To the Top Together. So I invite all of you to join us with that this fall. So thank you, Ashley, for having us.
And I'll just reiterate the same thing Dr. Anderson said and what everybody else has said, that, I appreciate being here and I appreciate everybody logging in and listening and participating today. We certainly have been working throughout this pandemic with the forefront of the mind, how to create a safe and healthy environment for not only our faculty and staff, but also all of our students so that we can have a successful fall semester. And we will do all that we can to create the environment with clear communication about all of our expectations and anything we can do to be partners in this effort with all of our parents and families. Every year I say this when I speak, usually face-to-face at orientations to parent and families, to say, we want to be partners in this effort to help your student be successful academically, personally, and socially while they're here at Southern Miss. This year more than ever, we need to partner on this effort to make sure that we keep them healthy, connected, and learning, Dr. Anderson, while they are here as Southern Miss students. And that does mean adhering to these guidelines, as awkward as it may feel to them to wear a mask, wash their hands, and keep distance. That does have to become the new norm for all of us. And we want to support them in that so that they can stay healthy and that they can have a really, really successful year. But please do communicate with us through whatever means you're most comfortable. The Parent and Family Association is here to help you. We are all here to respond to you. And I know we can't get to everybody's questions in this time frame, but we want to address them. We want to be sure that we are ready. And as the weeks unfold and we get closer to fall and more questions arise, please do reach out and please make sure that we can address your questions and do whatever we need to do to get ready for the start of the fall.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today, for taking out the time to address the state of the university and plans for our fall 2020 semester. And I thank each of our Southern Miss parents and families and our community for joining us today for this live discussion. Just to reiterate, the questions that were addressed today were pre-submitted through an online submission form. So all of the questions that we addressed today were pre-submitted through an online submission form. And so we attempted to address as many as we could. Unfortunately, the time just was not enough, but we will certainly do our very best to respond to every question that you submitted in the comments box over the next 24 hours. So please continue to be patient with us as we answer your questions as best as possible in the next day or so. Again, thank you so much for joining. If you missed a portion of this live discussion, please feel free to review from the very beginning after the conclusion of this live. It will remain on the Southern Miss's Parent and Family Facebook page, so please feel free to review it after the discussion is complete. Additional information regarding policies and procedures and plans for the fall 2020 semester can be found on the Southern Miss's website by searching Flight Path Fall 2020. So please go to the Flight Path Fall 2020's web page on the Southern Miss website for additional information for plans for the fall 2020 semester. Again, I thank each of you, all of our parents and families. Please rely on the Parent and Family Association as your parent and family coordinator. I am here to assist you and be there for you in any possible way that I can. You can reach the Parent and Family Association by parentsandfamily@usm.edu, and that's our email address. Reach out via parentsandfamily@usm.edu, and that's Parents with an S. Parent and Family Association, the members, you will receive a newsletter every month. And that newsletter includes information about things that are happening on campus, certainly COVID-19, campus community, Hattiesburg community. So please be sure to check your emails when those monthly newsletters come out, and feel free to reach us by email or by phone. We are located in the Center for Student Success, and our phone number is 601-266-6405. Again, thank you to our panel for all of our participants on our live discussion today. We are certainly grateful to have this time together. And I will leave it with Southern Miss to the top.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.